All right, so like the team we mentioned, we're going to the Saints now. Team that had a lot of turnover and not in the good way, um, as opposed to the Bucks. Just gonna bring up. So in terms of just some guys they lost, Emmanuel Sanders, wide receiver, Jared Cook. Obviously, they lost. Like we mentioned, Drew Brees. That's a big, big loss in terms of not just talent, but just experience. I think some very intriguing ones are lost. They're both to two defensive linemen, Sheldon Rankins, who's a solid D lineman, and also the Malcolm Brown lost him as well, and then also Janoris Jenkins, who was playing pretty solid for them, lost him at corner, and then obviously defensive end slash edge rusher Trey Hendrickson, he was real key for them on the other side of Cam Jordan. Yeah, so especially those defensive losses, because I'm not too worried about offense. Whether it's Taysom or Jameis, under center. Um, and yes, your mic was a little better. But regardless, I'm more worried about the defense because, like we mentioned, they did beat the Bucks twice, but that's because, like we mentioned, their D line was, especially in terms of run defense and big and just size, they were able to hold their own against the Tampa Bay offensive line. And then I worry that with these losses and no notable additions to replace them, that the formula is just easier for Tampa Bay to just to do their thing against the Saints. But who knows? I mean, especially with it's always tough with D linemen, offensive linemen, because I feel like some teams they're willing to let these guys go because they have other guys coming up the ranks that they feel can just insert insert in and play well. So maybe that's what the Saints just know that they can afford to lose those guys and they'll be fine. Regardless, we'll have to see. But yeah, if I have any expectations for this team, I expect this team to be kind of like I mentioned with the Bucks last year, a wild cardish team. Wouldn't shock me if they missed the playoffs. Especially Michael Thomas is going to miss some time early in the season. I don't really, I mean, it's going to be a lot on Alvin Kamara on the offensive line. Honestly, if I had to predict too, I think it's Taysom Hill is the best option just because there's not many other weapons. They're going to have to do some, read option bootlegs, have him out on the run, things like that. But maybe that's on the flip side. That's why you would want to start Jameis so that you can use Taysom as the tight end wide receiver that they usually do while Michael Thomas is out. Which also another whole thing with Michael Thomas and the organization. So a lot of question marks for them. But yeah, what are your feelings on the Saints and just all this turnover?
Well, first off, I mean, the most obvious question with the Saints is who's going to play quarterback.
Yeah,
And you touched on that. I think they go Jameis because of the versatility that Taysom provides. I think they're just in a situation where if you start Taysom at quarterback, then Jameis is really giving you no value to the team outside of practice squad kind of stuff. Um, but if you start Jameis, then Taysom can still make a really big impact at the same time with trick plays, playing tight end, receiver, running back, return man, all of the above. So I think they'll lean Jameis to start at quarterback. That doesn't mean I could very easily see them running, 10 to 15% of their plays with Taysom under center, or in shotgun or something to just throw in some crazy trick plays because we know it can throw. Um, so that's what I think with the first thing, being quarterback. The Michael Thomas situation. I mean, he's going to miss games, obviously, but who knows if he even plays for the Saints this year after some of the responses he's had on social media. So he maybe gets traded. I don't know. And then finally, I think the team misses the playoffs. I think they were in a lot of cap issues last year, or this offseason coming out of last year, and I that's a large part as to why they missed a lot of the guys or lost a lot of the guys that left the team. And as you said, they didn't really get any notable free agent pickups to replace them. And as you noted, notably that's on the defensive side of the ball. So um, yeah, I would not be surprised if the Saints were to miss the playoffs. Honestly, for me right now, I'd give it like a 80-20. I think they missed the playoffs personally. And that's just because once again, the Buccaneers have cleaned things up, and I think that's two of their wins from last year that they've just lost. And I have to imagine that Drew Brees and losing him, now having to change your scheme quite a bit to fit Jameis and Taysom and all these guys, I think it's just going to be different. And then no Michael Thomas, he said the defense is going to be worse. There's a lot of negative points for the Saints and not a lot of hope outside of maybe Kamara can carry them really far with his versatility and the ability to win games, as we've seen in the past without Drew Brees, the Saints have won. But I don't know. I believe in Sean Payton. I believe in Alvin Kamara. I like Jameis and Taysom as your sort of quarterback options, but I just think they have too many other issues to overcome. Meanwhile, as we'll get into deeper into this division, I think there just could be more competitiveness between the other two teams that are going to come after the years they had last year, which overall were not very good.
Yeah. So, and honestly, the more I think about it, we will talk about the NFC West later, but another division that's going to be better, maybe more playoff teams, and then also the team we're talking about next, which we'll go to, Carolina, could be better. And they could just, not in terms of make the playoffs, but could at least steal a game or two off that record that you mentioned. And if I remember I should have looked at the beginning of the season. I know with the Saints, Green Bay is week 1, so you're already starting off with a tough one without Michael Thomas and with you don't know our quarterback. And this last point of the Saints, I know, like I mentioned, the defensive end is Peyton Turner out of Houston. Wasn't in love with him coming out, especially not in the first round. I remember watching that Bleacher. I'm not sure if we watched the Bleacher Report coverage or the ESPN coverage, but they had Cam Jordan on, and Cam Jordan, he wasn't very ecstatic about the pick. It was one of those where he kind of had to think of positive things to say about him. Now, granted, who knows? Maybe it works out, but once again, they took a swing a couple years on the guy that I like, Marcus Davenport, who's still on the roster, but had injury issues. So right now, Saints are maybe hitting that point where, like you mentioned, where maybe it's almost time to hit the reset because just missed on some draft picks and players. So, but we'll see how it goes. I still think the offense will be fine going forward at Sean Payton, but yeah, I still have questions about that defense. So, all right.
By the way, on their schedule, it's tough. I'm not gonna lie. They start with Green Bay, and they go to Carolina, and both teams. I think you don't really know what you're gonna get yet. But then they go to New England, who got better.
Yep.
They got to play the Giants, who have a really tough defense.
Yep.
And if Saquon Barkley's healthy at that point, they have a run game. You got Washington, another tough defense.
Good defense, yeah. So
you got to play Seattle, Russell Wilson, and you go to Tampa. You get some relief with Atlanta and the Falcons, but still, once again, you never know what you're going to get with that game. Then you got Tennessee, you got the Bills.
Yeah.
You got the Dolphins later in the year.
Yeah, that whole division's tough. So it's